In the deserted garden of a deserted house in Maniktala, Calcutta, sometimes two women would enter, and after a while only one would come out and return home. The woman who later came out alone had an innocent face, behind which a cunning mind might be hidden, but no one knew. One evening, this woman brought a friend with her, promising that from that day all her sorrows would end. For this, he had to come to the deserted big house and dive into the pond to meet a miraculous father. Following her instructions, her friend came with her. She removed her clothes and jewelry at the edge of the pond and slowly descended into the water. But what happened next was something she had never imagined. As soon as she put her head underwater to take a dip, it felt like someone was forcibly pushing her head down. She started struggling to get out of the water, but soon water filled her lungs. Her breath started to stop. She struggled, screamed, flailed, and finally her hands went cold. In this manner, several women were brutally killed in broad daylight, and no one even got a hint of it. This is the story of India's first serial killer, who was not a burly or terrifying-looking man, but a woman with a mask of innocence, hiding a face of pain. This is the story of a Troilokya Tarini Devi. No one would have thought that the name of a delicate woman would be included in the list of serial killers of her time, back when people didn't even know what a serial killer was. Born into a Brahmin family in a small village in India, she was raised like an ordinary girl. At the age of 13, marriage proposals started coming in for her, and soon she was married off to a 60-year-old man. After the marriage, according to custom, she stayed with her parents before moving to her in-laws' house. But within 2 to 3 years of marriage, her husband passed away. At just 15, she became a widow, and her life came to a halt. This time, he met a kind woman who comforted him. Little did he know, this meeting would be the turning point of his life. The woman was involved in girl trafficking in a brothel in Calcutta. Through him, she met a boy and now started liking him. As their relationship grows, word spreads throughout the village and they face a lot of criticism. Eventually, she runs away with her lover, leaving everything behind. Tarini Devi was sold by her lover in Sonagachi, the red light area of Calcutta. Tarini Devi's serial killer tour starts from Sonagachi. She gradually began to establish herself in the world of Sonagachi. Her beauty soon became the talk of the town, and people would come from far and wide, willing to pay any price for her. She earned a lot of wealth and fame there. Everything was going well until one day she met Kali Babu. Kali Babu's wife was died. Kali Babu was her true lover, and she had a son named Hari. Kali Babu and she started falling in love with each other, and she adopted Hari. She began living with Kali Babu. The responsibilities of Kali Babu and Hari made her life revolve around the home. Consequently, her name began to fade in the world of prostitution. It became increasingly difficult for her to cover the expenses of her livelihood and her son's education. Troubled by poverty and helplessness, she and Kali Babu resorted to theft to meet their needs. Under the guise of prostitution, she would call her clients, intoxicate them with some substance mixed in their drinks, and then rob them with Kali Babu's help. Within a few days, everyone found out about this scheme, and people stopped going to her to avoid being robbed. Tarini Devi and Kali Babu adopted a beautiful prostitute as their daughter and arranged her marriage with a wealthy family in a nearby village. The marriage was finalized, and after the wedding, the girl, under the pretext of visiting her parents, left her in-laws with gold and money. Along the way, she betrayed her husband, drugged him, and after robbing him, ran back to Tarini Devi and Kali Babu. Every time she would steal in some way and then disappear, only to return to Tarini Devi and Kali Babu, who would sell the stolen goods at a good price. When this scheme also failed to sustain them, they started kidnapping young girls and selling them. They targeted girls around 11 or 12 years old, kidnapped them, and sold them in brothels or arranged their marriages for money. Their criminal activities deepened, reaching a point where they crossed all boundaries. Kali Babu once invited a gold merchant to his house under the pretense of buying gold and promised to pay upon delivery. When the merchant's servant arrived with the gold and demanded payment, Kali Babu murdered him and buried him under the house. The shop owner became worried because the gold merchant's employee did not return with the money. About 14 hours later, the police were informed of the entire incident and immediately started an investigation. They conducted an investigation and soon found the body as well. Kalibabu was arrested and convicted in court for murder. Kalibabu was sentenced to death, but due to a lack of evidence proving the involvement of the Tarini Devi in the entire incident, it was acquitted. After Kalibabu's death, Tarini Devi, she was once again left alone. It became difficult for her to feed herself and her son. Out of compulsion, she sold her house and all her jewelry, moved to the outskirts of the city, and started living in a small house. And everyone thought that the era of Tarini Devi had ended, but they were not going to give up so easily. Through Anjana, she began to contact her old friends living in Sonagachi. These were the ones who, in their advancing age, had started to worry about their future. To ensnare them, she concocted a story about a miraculous father who could solve all their problems. She found a house in a deserted area of the city, which had a gypsy-like garden and a pond. One day, as per their agreement, she took her first friend to meet the miraculous father and pointed towards the pond, saying that before meeting the miraculous father, she needed to take a dip in the holy water. Her friend removed her clothes and ornaments and placed them by the pond before slowly entering the water. As soon as her head dipped in the water, the Tarini Devi grabbed her head tightly. She panicked and started flailing in the water. Her body began to fill with water, and she screamed, begging for her life. Her friend's panic kept increasing underwater. After struggling for a long time, she could no longer scream. Her heartbeat began to slow. The Tarini Devi didn't let go until every last drop of her life was gone. After successfully killing her, the Tarini Devi lifted her head, gathered her clothes and ornaments, and walked towards her home. In this way, within 3 years, after that, she took the lives of 5 more women. Today, the count was about to increase from 5 to 6. Her friend had come with her, full of hope, seeking a solution to her problems. But little did she know what Tarini Devi were, and trusted blindly. Today, she would kill her at the hands of death. Like every other time, she asked her to take a dip in the pond. As soon as she dived in the pond, the Tarini Devi grabbed her head tightly underwater. But that day, it was different. Apart from her and her friend, a third person was present who caught her red-handed playing this game in the water. When both of them took her to the police, the cunning Tarini Devi deceived the police officer once again and escaped. Demanding justice, the woman went to Officer Mukhopadhyay. Officer Priyanath Mukhopadhyay was quite famous in the crime world of Bengal. The officer immediately started the investigation, gathered many witnesses and evidence, and searched her house. When the investigation was complete, she was found guilty and taken into custody. But once again, luck was on her side. She deceived the police officer and escaped from the police. Fearing losing his job, the officer cleared her of all charges, and once again, a serial killer was let loose in the streets of Bengal. The news of her freedom and her deeds spread throughout the city like wildfire. However, to avoid any impact on these matters, she took refuge in Chittorgarh and started living there, collecting her old acquaintances. When the money she had gathered began to run out, she targeted her neighbor, the princess. Tarini Devi tried to poison her twice, and then one evening, she strangled the princess. In her sleep and fled with all the ornaments, Mukhopadhyay understood that the Tarini Devi had now become a terrifying serial killer. He knew that she wouldn't be easily caught anymore. She had to be captured using wits, not strength. He devised a master plan by police officer. Tarini Devi's biggest weakness was her son, Hari. Using this to his advantage, Mukhopadhyay, with the help of her neighbors, laid a trap. He bribed them to accuse Hari of murder and testify against him. Seeing the sword hanging over her son's head, the Tarini Devi facade crumbled, and she confessed her crimes. When the troll realized the officer's trick, she tried to play another game to save herself, but by then, she was too terrified to pull off another trick. After many appeals, on September 3, 1884, the Calcutta High Court sentenced her to death. Finally, the bloody tale of the Tarini Devi ended. She was a fighter with a strong survival instinct, but the path she chose was soaked in the blood of innocent people. When the line between right and wrong, truth and lies begins to blur, crime becomes a habit. She became a dangerous criminal and India's first serial killer. If you liked this video and want to know more about unheard stories, do let us know in the comments section and don't forget to subscribe.